It's exam season just around the corner, and there's a stack of revision waiting for you, and it's only getting higher. You might be feeling stressed, and you're wondering if you can cover all the material before the exam. In this video, we're going to talk through some fast, actionable advice which you can implement immediately to help you fly through studying quicker and feel less anxious about the upcoming exams. But first, let me quickly introduce myself to those of you who are new. My name is Rohan. I'm a third-year medical student studying at Cambridge University. Now look, I get the struggle you're facing right now. Pretty much at every stage of the education pathway, it feels like the content is endless. At GCSE, it's the sheer number of subjects you have to prepare for. At A-level, if you take biology, I wish you all the best because it's really content heavy. And medical school does have its reputation of being hard because of just the sheer amount of content. And I've talked about this in other videos. So as someone who's been through it all firsthand and who's going through it right now as I record this video, and who often has chats with my friends about how to deal with swathes of content, I hope these tips I've collated will be useful for you and easy to apply to your study routine. So the first thing I should say is that clearly the most effective way to deal with a heavy content workload is to implement active recall and spaced repetition. Although it's scary and a bit counterintuitive to go slower, by testing yourself and repeating that content a day later, then a week later, it honestly helps it stick in long-term memory. And there's a ton of evidence to support this practice, and it's worked for me personally in the past. So I'm not just parroting things which other YouTubers have said. In a similar vein, taking time to understand the topic and the big picture before trying to blitz through smaller detail will also save you time in the long run. However, I won't dwell too much more on these things today, even though they are the most important things when you're studying for a lot of content, because even when you do implement these things, it can still be stressful to deal with a high workload. So hopefully the rest of the advice I give will be useful in this regards. So one of the practices which you can implement right now is what Ali Abdaal would call scoping the subject. So this is basically getting down on a piece of paper or a document and listing everything that could be on the exams. So you're essentially creating your own syllabus. Now, you don't have to do this if your course has already given you a syllabus, but at university they usually don't, so I like making a list for myself of all the lectures and all the modules. The logic of this is essentially you want to quantify the beast, or know what you have to tackle. Another little hack which I like to implement to make it seem like it's less work is to break up the syllabus into intermediate chunks. So the chunks shouldn't be too small, or it'll be like, I need to deal with like 200 lectures before the exam. But it shouldn't be too large, or I'll be like, I need to study all of anatomy. Both these situations can be overwhelming. Instead, an example of intermediate chunks is to be like, okay, for pathology, I need to study immunology, bacteriology, parasitology, and cancer. And within immunology, I need to study innate and adaptive immunity. And within bacteriology, I need to study gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, and so on. Breaking it up into these chunks makes it a lot more manageable and hopefully will stress us out less. We're not done with scoping yet. On the syllabus that you were given, write down all the specific exam prep that you would have liked to have done before the exams. This is basically listing out what resources you intend to do, like all the past papers, or if it's an essay subject, then what essay titles relate to each bit of the course, or what titles you're predicting is going to come up. You can see that I've done it here. For every lecture on the course in a module, I've listed the essay titles from the past papers, and I've highlighted the ones which I want to make essay plans for. And even for my A-levels, I made a list of question sets which I wanted to get through. So basically, you have a massive to-do list for your exams on one document or piece of paper. This itself should relieve a lot of stress, because it was likely that you're keeping all this information in your head. Things like, I need to make notes for this, or answer those questions, or do that online mock exam paper. Keeping it all in your head is a drain on your cognitive energy, because you have to keep it in your working memory, which has limited bandwidth. Dumping it all somewhere will relieve your stress associated with heavy workload and help you to actually focus on the work itself. And then, the best thing to do is to look through the past papers to see what is frequently tested and what rarely comes up. In this way, we can focus our studying on high-yield topics. And talking to teachers and seniors is a really good way to help this process. Obviously, it is desirable to study everything, but chances are if it's a content-heavy course, there won't be enough time. But just accepting that in your mind and deciding to be more intentional with your time should help you deal with content overload. The next step is planning out your revision. Now, I don't actually plan out my revision much. I don't make fancy, color-coded timetables because I know that as humans, we're not that good at estimating how much time a task will take. We always overestimate our abilities. Instead, I like to work to deadlines and to think of studying in different phases. For example, last year I spent 3 weeks of the study leave trying to learn for lecture content as much as possible, and then for the next 2 weeks, no matter what, even if I hadn't finished all the learning and I hadn't quite got through all the lectures, I started doing past papers in time conditions. This is because I know that past papers are the most high yield thing to be doing before exams, so I wanted to prioritize that even if it meant that I didn't know some parts of the syllabus. Deadlines will also help us avoid rabbit holes and spending too long on a single topic or lecture. And I think this blends into a broader point of not being too stubborn with your revision. And I've been guilty of doing this in the past, but too often we start by doing something like making notes, and then we're like, well, now I've started, I've got to finish making notes for all the lectures. And this is a fallacy that we need to avoid, but instead just admit the times that we've got our approach wrong and quickly recalibrate. Anything that will help us be more prepared for the exams is better. For example, at the start of the holiday, I started by trying to read every paper that was on the reading list for each topic. But after about a week, I realized I was going too slow. So instead, now I look at an essay title and only read the papers that will help me answer that question. So yeah, being flexible will help you get through the content more efficiently. Another thing that you can do starting from today is to ask your friends if they want to work together on some aspects of studying. So although it's ultimately your responsibility for your own learning, there are some things you can outsource and divide to reduce your workload. For example, if you're doing an essay subject, you can work together by sharing essay plans, so you can cover more of the potential titles. Even if it's not an essay subject, you can work together to make active recall questions or flashcards. And a tip on this is to not be afraid to make the first move. Even if the person you're asking doesn't want to work together, that's fine. In most cases, they'll be happy that you even thought of them to work together with. This is what I did last year and this is what I'm doing this year, because I know that I can't make 100 essay plans myself. But if I can make like 30 odd and then split between 2 or 3 people, then we'll have 100 essay plans between us. There's obviously some caveats with sharing, so you're going to make sure that ideally you should be similar capability and that you should trust each other and communicate regularly so there's no misunderstanding or repeating what the other person's already done. The next thing is to make sure that you have a sustainable daily routine you can stick to throughout the duration of the exam season. There's no point for working like 13, 14 hours one day and then you need to recover the whole of the next day because you didn't get enough sleep, and then you get brain fog on another day because you didn't exercise recently, or that you constantly get headaches because you forgot to eat. Having a healthy body is critical to having a healthy mind and getting through lots of content. Our brain is housed in our body, so it makes sense to optimize our health so we can give the brain everything it needs to get through all that studying for peak performance. For example, if you're getting stressed about workload, just literally go outside and go for a run or go for a walk and just breathe for 10 minutes. The return on investment for those 10 minutes will be worth several hours of work, I guarantee you, and it's something that I do every day. Having these cornerstone habits or non-negotiables will help you perform better for longer periods of time. Some people ask me how many hours you should be working, and I think 8-8-8 is a pretty good rule. So that's 8 hours for studying, 8 hours for sleeping, and 8 hours for everything else. And don't be afraid to take a break if you need to. So for example, today, I've pretty much taken the whole day off to do YouTube related things. And then for the next 5 days, I'm going away for a Christian conference because I've been working really hard for the last 2 weeks. But I know I'll be able to come back refreshed and work really intensely for the next 6 weeks up till exams. And finally, this might be a bit counterintuitive, but I think it's useful to harness stress and to reframe it as something positive. This might contrast to my previous point about being consistent and taking breaks. But there's a phrase that goes, pressure can burst a pipe, or pressure can make a diamond. It's a bit cheesy, I know, but harness that adrenaline and cortisol that your adrenal gland is pumping out to increase your performance and power you through different study sessions. A lot of emotion is our cognitive perception of it, and we can change the way we feel by what we do and what we think. This is why cognitive behavioral therapy works. Of course, it's important to acknowledge unhealthy levels of stress and to take steps to reduce it. And I'm in no way trying to belittle people who are going through that. But if we reappraise the work that we have to do ahead of us as a relatively short period of time in our life, for example, a couple of months, where we can really test ourselves and try get to our peak performance in our habits and our routines, to see the exams as an opportunity to show our knowledge to the examiner, and then to have a massive summer holiday afterwards to celebrate at the end, I think it can make the whole exam season experience a lot more enjoyable. So that brings us to the end of the video. A lot of the points I mentioned were mindset hacks, and you might be thinking how that's going to help you get through your content. But in my opinion, I think a lot of issues we face around exams aren't just the work, but it's psychological. One of the biggest obstacles in our path to exam success, or just general contentment in life, is ourselves. And I think if we can deal with that, then we can unlock a better quality of life and better performance, which will help us deal with all the content and study a lot better. So anyway, if you found this video useful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this in the future. Anyway, take care and bye for now.